Morning again, guys. Well, I wasn't planning on making two videos today, but as normal, I was reading comments from what came over last night, and someone made a comment on the "We've seen it before and it ain't pretty" video, and it really excited me. So I decided to go play legal sleuth this morning. What I found did not make me happy. Okay. So again, like I said, my apologies that you get two videos today. Not normal, but figured you might want to hear this. We're all pretty worried about the vaccine mandates that nobody's admitting coming, but we're not doorknobs. We all know that it's coming down. So I decided to go in and take a look at the laws, and the first one was the one that started all of this because it was made in a comment. So I looked it up and then went from there. So if I start with international law, okay, the United States or the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, was founded in 1945 after World War II to address the atrocities committed by Germany and Japan during the war. And its laws were written into the Constitution of UNESCO in 1945. Okay. The United States was one of the founding members, so that was good. The U.S. was part of UNESCO until 1984, when we withdrew our support over concerns of corruption and an ideological tilt toward the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War. Okay. We rejoined UNESCO in 2003, and President Bush announced at the time, and I'll quote this: "As a symbol to our commitment to human dignity, the United States will return to UNESCO. The organization has been reformed, and America will participate fully in its mission to advance human rights and tolerance and learning." Okay, all's good. Okay, UNESCO is no longer a proponent of communism. The members go on to readopt the Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights in 2005, and we get this. Okay. It's the one particular provision and the one that was mentioned in this comment. It's Article 6, subsection 1. And this is what it states: "Any preventative," key word there, "diagnostic and therapeutic medical intervention is only to be carried out with the prior free and informed consent of the person concerned based on adequate information. The consent should, where appropriate, be express and may be withdrawn by the person concerned at any time and for any reason without disadvantage or prejudice." Okay, sounds good. The key to me there: any preventive medical intervention is to be only carried out with the prior free and informed consent of the person concerned. Okay, which means basically, if I don't want the vaccine, I shouldn't have to take it. It's all fabulous, right? Hang on a minute. The U.S. withdrew from UNESCO January 1st, 2019, not due to scientific differences it had with UNESCO, but because UNESCO recognized the old city of Hebron in the West Bank as a Palestinian World Heritage Site. Clearly, we had a cultural difference with the group. So wonderful. Now, because of the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians over land rights, we, the U.S. people, are no longer protected by the UNESCO guidelines. In politics, wonderful. Okay. So that blows that out of the water. So much for having international law on our side. So let's keep going. So how about federal law? Now, the federal government's going to face challenges if it wants to mandate vaccinations for Americans, chiefly because the Constitution leaves the right to govern public health to states. But that hasn't stopped people from speculating about how, if the pandemic required, the federal government might press the issue. The federal government could, for example, take advantage of its rights to regulate interstate commerce, regulate transportation, and mandate that individuals crossing state borders are vaccinated. Okay. Though the Supreme Court would probably rule that Congress was overreaching by doing so, this kind of goes into what I talked about in the video, Papers, Please. Okay, an internal passport. They could do it. Well, far more likely what's going to happen is the federal government might exercise its influence over spending in a way to incentivize the states to pursue the vaccination mandates. Like I said earlier, it's the Constitution allows public health to be governed by the states, so the feds are going to kind of twist the arm of the states. All right. The federal government has expansive control in taxing and spending for general welfare, meaning they could tie funds distributed to the states to adherence for vaccination goals. Okay, we saw over the past 4 years how many times Trump threatened to withhold funding from certain states for things like sanctuary cities and expanding absentee voting. Okay, the strategy's been used in the past. I mean, for example, raising the legal drinking age to 21 by withholding federal highway funding for states. Okay, so this has been done. My guess is, as usual, the federal government's going to punt on the issue and send it back down to the states. After all, what's most important to senators and congressmen? The people? No, it's getting reelected. Okay, they want to be able to tell their constituents, I was against this, but it was out of my jurisdiction. It was a state issue. Like that's ever stopped them on things like, I don't know, abortion, entitlement issues, anything like that. So that brings us down to the state level. All right, and this is where it starts to get sticky. Again, remember, the Constitution says health issues are a state's issue. The legal precedent for vaccination mandates at the state level is laid out by a Supreme Court case from 1905, Jacobson versus Massachusetts, okay, which confirmed a state's right to enact reasonable regulations established by legislature to protect the public health and safety. Back then, in addressing an outbreak of smallpox in Massachusetts, this case clarified that such an order is not a violation of the 14th Amendment right of liberty, but rather that liberty could not exist if individuals could act in a way that is injurious to other persons, for example, by carrying a disease that could otherwise be vaccinated against. I also go on, while compulsory vaccination requirements have faced legal challenges since Jacobson, courts have consistently rejected these challenges and given considerable deference to the use of the state's police power, okay, martial law, to require immunizations to protect the public health. This precedent has held since 1905, having most recently been used as the basis for mandatory vaccinations in several zip codes in New York City following a measles outbreak in 2019. Okay, so we're screwed here too. So now let's go down as far as private rights. Let's say business. Now, businesses may say hell no to requiring employees and patrons to be vaccinated, but then we get back to the states. Okay, we've seen, the bar up in Staten Island, the gym in Jersey, whatever it would be. Okay, but here's the catch. Any business has to be licensed to operate in the state or states in which they operate. Ultimately, the state can pull a business license if they do not comply and put the business out of business. We've seen that over and over and over again. Okay, so that doesn't work. So now we get down to individual rights. This is where we can get something done. Okay, you see, without going back up the chain, the government entities are screwed. If you don't shop at a store because they were closed, the government gets no sales tax. If your job disappears, the government gets no income tax money. Okay, this is why there's been a talk about a personal property tax. Taxing you on things like the ownership of the dishes in your house, the furniture, your lawnmower, whatever. Okay. This has been tried many times in history, and it's always a failure. I can remember times in Chicago when they wanted to do it, and the tax collector had come on the door, and he wanted to do an inventory of your house, and basically nobody let him in. And it died on the vine. Okay. So now the only thing left for them to tax is your physical property, your house, your land, okay? And this is why I've said before, check your state constitution. For Tennessee, at least, it's in the state constitution that property taxes cannot be raised more than 2% without it going to a vote. Now, don't get me started on election corruption and everything like that. I'm just telling you what's in the laws, okay? This is how we beat them, guys, okay? The only way we can beat them is economically. It's not, we have to cut the head off the snake. All right. This is the ones at the top. All right. Sure, the ones in the street are the useful idiots, like I've said before, that are, the physical threat to you. And we can stop the physical threat, try to stop the physical threat all we want. The problem is you get rid of 5 Antifa guys and Soros just goes and recruits 5 more and replaces them. I mean, it's just a never ending cycle. You're not going to eliminate every single Democrat, social or Democratic socialist in this country. So that's why I keep talking about we've got to do it some other way. All right. This is why we can do this. We have to starve the governments. Okay. Yeah, I know it's going to take a while to starve Bill Gates and George Soros and the Rothschilds and everything like that. Yeah, I get it. Okay. Let them have all the money in the world if they want it. If they've got all that fiat currency, wonderful. If we don't want it, it's worthless to them. Okay. Understand, the value of something is only what somebody else will give you for it. If they've got $1 billion in their wallet, okay, and to you a dollar is worth nothing, then that $1 billion is still worth nothing. 1 times 0 equals 0. 1 billion times 0 equals 0. Eventually, if we're all self-sufficient, okay, we've got everything we need. We can suffocate them without suffocating ourselves. We can win this. We just have to stop the greedy bastards from by using the one thing they value most, money, against them. Okay? If it's all they have, but it's worthless to us, it's worthless to them. Pinball out.